Yeah, we're on there. Hello, everybody. Good morning to our students, our professors, all members of our Centro Universitário de Brasília. It's a great honor to receive here today Ambassador of the Azerbaijan in Brazil, Mr. Elkhan Polukhov. He will be talking to us a little bit of Azerbaijani geopolitics, the Caucasus, geopolitics, oil industry, and pandemics, everything he's up to talk to us today. It's a great pleasure to have you here, Ambassador. So we would like to hear a little bit about the context of Azerbaijani politics, and then be free to give an introduction about these subjects, geopolitics, and whatever you may share with us. And after, we'll have the questions and answers from our students who will be interested in further subjects. So the floor is all yours now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor. First of all, it's great pleasure and honor for me to be here to represent my country and talk to this team auditory. Good morning, everybody. Bom dia, todos. Unfortunately, my Portuguese is not so good, so I have to use English as a lecture, as the language of delivery of this lecture. Azerbaijan, where is it? Who is it? Why they are? Why we need to talk about this country while we have traditional partners, traditional countries like in old Europe, or if we look to Asia, giants there. And Azerbaijan, if you look to the map, it's somewhere there. I want to use my PowerPoint presentation with your permission, where more things will be in details, so it will be easier. Sorry for that, not correct one. So PowerPoint presentation. I hope this is correct one. Yes. Yes. So the topic of our meeting and lecture, I hope everybody see the presentation. Is it on, Professor?
Yes, it is.
Yes. The topic of our today's, I wouldn't call it a lecture presentation about my country. It's about geopolitics of petroleum. And we'll come to this issue, why geopolitics of petroleum, why not other topics. Let's look to the map. Where is Azerbaijan? You can see it's just in the middle of the map. That geographical situation or location of Azerbaijan dictated history and geopolitics and current, let's say, position in the world, on geopolitical map of the world. If we look larger map, which I don't have here, you can see easily that through the territory of Azerbaijan, the shortest way from Asia to Europe and vice versa line through. So it means that Azerbaijan historically played the role of linking chain between giant civilization, Asian and European one. So we also shortest route from our Russian Federation to the Iran and other big countries of the regions. And Azerbaijan used to be and still part of Great Silk Road, which used to connect Asia, China primarily, with Europe. And you can find traces of Silkway on the different parts of Azerbaijan if you travel to the country. Geopolitics of my country has his deep history, but he has also modern history. Why? Because by looking to the map, you can see that current Azerbaijan is sandwiched between such great powers like Russia, Iran, Turkey. It has connection through the Caspian Sea with Central Asian republics, and through the Georgia, we have access to the Europe. Geographically and politically, Azerbaijan is Europe, but it can be called suburb of Europe because we're last frontier of European map, and after that, Central Asia started. But culturally, it's very diverse and very mixed. Azerbaijan has enjoyed of having a long, century-long history of multiculturalism, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. Why I'm talking that Azerbaijan has ancient history, modern one, because during different period of time, Azerbaijan was used to be part of Persian Empire. The Persian Empire has its own diverse history when different tribes used to rule the Persian Empire, and some of them were Azerbaijani tribes and leaderships. But current Azerbaijan, current frontier of Azerbaijan between Iran and my country was drawn in 19th century, when that time Tsarist Russia started war with Iran, and it was two major wars by end of which the current frontier of Azerbaijan, or border between Azerbaijan and Iran, was drawn. Again, that time, this current part of Azerbaijan, modern Azerbaijan, become a part of Tsarist Russia, and we remained under the rule of Russian Empire until 1918, when Tsarist Russia collapsed. You know, the Great Bolshevik Revolution in Russian Empire, after which Soviet Union was created. So, as a process of collapse of the Tsarist Russia, three nations, major nations of the region, Georgian, Armenians, and Azerbaijanis, proclaimed in 1918 their independence. And actually, this month we're going to celebrate anniversary, 103rd anniversary of independence of Azerbaijan. So in May 28, Armenia and Azerbaijan, and May 26, Georgia proclaimed their independence from Tsarist Russia. They start to work on recognition of on international arena. Number of countries recognized Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan even start to set its embassies in neighboring countries, in European countries. Our delegation went to the Europe to participate on different international activities there. I don't want to stuck too much to that history, but even in 1918, when Azerbaijan proclaimed its independence, next step which would start to face, it was aggression of neighboring Armenia, or claim, yes. My audio. Okay. How about now? Okay. Let me just continue from here. What we had in 1918, the Armenians start to claim some territories of Azerbaijan based on fact that the territory of region called Nagorno-Karabakh was mostly populated by Armenians. So it's become a reason to Armenia to lay the claims to this territory and start to aggression against Azerbaijan. And it was one of, let's say, first clashes between independent Azerbaijan and Armenia. Azerbaijan at that time succeeded to protect its territories and withdraw Armenian forces. But you know that in 1920, Bolshevik Russia start to his activities, political activities, by gathering territories or under his control, territories of former Tsarist Russia. And Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia was conquered by Bolshevik Russians in 1920-21. So history of independence, of first independence of Azerbaijan continued just 19-20 months that time. after which we become part of Soviet Union. But even during this short period of time, Azerbaijan did a lot. We introduced our currency, we elected parliaments. We actually, in 1918, granted the women's right to vote when current so-called democracies didn't even start to think about that. So, and let's do not forget that Azerbaijan is predominantly Muslim country, and we were pioneer on this matter. The first theater in Oriental world was introduced in Azerbaijan. So women was granted right to vote. First theater was introduced, and many other achievements. But after the Bolshevik Russian intervention and occupation of territories of Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, all three republics become part of Soviet Union. And Soviet Union used to have 15 republics, which composed the Soviet Union, Soviet Socialist Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, official name. But in this union, of course, all the republics had nominal rights. Yes, officially, all republics used to have their Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Interior, no army, but the rest of attributes of the independence were there. We used to have our own flag, and anthem, and other attributes, but in reality, everything was delegated to the Moscow, to the capital of Soviet Union, and was managed from there by Communist Party. That's why we usually do not count the period of our presence in Soviet Union as a continuation of our independence. So first Azerbaijan Republic at that time was called, official name was Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, was proclaimed in 1918, but it was conquered and in 1920. And in 1991, in eve of collapse of Soviet Union, all three republics gained another opportunity to proclaim their independence. And we use this chance to proclaim continuation of our independence. So we count from 1918. And in 1991, we proclaimed continuation of legacy of first Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, and official name of my country became Azerbaijan Republic. But as it happened in 1918, we immediately again faced the aggression from the side of Armenia, neighboring Armenia. In this map, you can see the different colors. Yellow, the light yellow, it's territory, general territory of Azerbaijan. And you can clearly see that it's divided by territory of Armenia into the two parts. One is called Nakhchivan, which has a border with Turkey and Iran and Armenia, and another mainland of my country. And it's divided by territory of Armenia. And this map was designed by during Soviet Union, when Soviets decided to allocate this corridor, which used to link Azerbaijan with Nakhchivan, main part with Nakhchivan, to allocate and give it to the Armenia. But coming to the period of Soviet Union, period of collapse of Soviet Union. In 1988, the territory which you can see on the red, called Nagorno-Karabakh, and translation of this word mean mountains, not Karabakh. And Karabakh from Azerbaijan, it's Black Garden. So mountains, Karabakh, people who live there, mostly Armenians, they start to claim that they need to rejoin with Armenia again, based on the fact that majority of population of this territory are Armenians. Of course, this claim was rejected by population of Armenia, of Azerbaijan, and using this chance and using the political difficulties inside of my country, Armenians start another military aggression. So From 1988, even when both republics were part of Soviet Union, Armenian separatists, mostly with large support of Armenian diaspora from abroad, started aggressive actions against Azerbaijan and start to use terror. During this time, a lot of terror attacks against Azerbaijani facilities, against civilians was performed. Armenians performed attacks on railway, killing number of civilians on buses, ferries, subways. So in total, it was more than 30 different type of terror attack against civilians during this time, during the collapse of Soviet Union and proclamation of independence. So using this advantage of situation, internal political turmoil in the country, in Azerbaijan, the very difficult economic situation, lack of experience. Please do not forget that Soviet Union was socialist-oriented economy, and Azerbaijan didn't have experience of market economy at that time. And we didn't have international experience, how to deliver information, truth about Azerbaijan on international arena. So using all of these advantages, Armenia, with partly support of regiments from Soviet Union Army, which were located on the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh, they launched aggressive attack against civilians living there. And in 1994, we get to the situation when all the territories, which you can see on the map, and it's colored in green, yellow, and red, were occupied by Armenian military forces. So, and all of this territory was ethnically cleansed from the population who lived there. So even single Azerbaijani didn't remain there. Similar things happened with Azerbaijanis who used to live on the territory of Armenia. So in total, by 1994, we got 1 million refugees and IDPs, internally displaced people. And around 20% of territory of Azerbaijan under the Armenian occupation. So beside this red area, they also occupied 7 adjusted districts, and they start to call it security barrier or security area. And this security area was twice bigger than territory which initially claimed. And it's obviously showed that it was not fight for, or I don't know, resistance for independence. It was aggression for territory, for occupation. It's some figures which I already presented you. In the end of 1991, when all 3 republics become independent, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan turned to the military phase. You see that, as I mentioned before, 7 adjusted regions beside Nagorno-Karabakh were occupied and completely destroyed. Recently, we liberated this land, and it's become obvious fact that Armenia looted all the occupied territories without even idea or even attempt to build something there. During First Karabakh War, which from 1991 to 1994, 30,000 people were killed from both sides. Mostly it was Azerbaijanis, Azerbaijani militaries. Up to now, around 4,000 Azerbaijanis are still missing. Armenians didn't provide any information about them. So even after 27 years is passed from the First Karabakh War, we don't have information about fate of these 4,000 people. So 20% of territory of country went to the Armenian occupation, 1 million refugees and IDPs. And these occupied territories become one of the most militarized area in the world, with relatively small area territory. It's had an enormous number of fortifications and enormous number of militaries deployed there with ammunition and everything. If we consider that total territory of Azerbaijan is 86,000 square kilometers in total, so you can imagine that 30% of territory of this country become heavily occupied and fortified. And to have an idea about 86,000 square kilometer, probably it's relatively more or less size of Minas Gerais, I would say, more or less this size. So coming again back to the first Armenian-Azerbaijan war, some facts and damages which territories suffered that time. You see that 11 villages, towns, number of villages and settlements, hospitals, communications, everything was destroyed there. Everything. I'm not talking about general destruction which happened during the war. In case of Nagorno-Karabakh and 7 adjacent regions, every construction was destroyed there. And when we liberated these lands last year, it was difficult to find the building where we could hang our flag. It was not literally even single building where you could hang your flag. Regional infrastructure, of course, was destroyed, bridges, roads, railways, everything. Definitely connection between Armenian and Azerbaijan was closed because whole the border became front line, not only on the area of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, but outside areas too. Railway connection, which used to be functional during Soviet time, roads, everything were cut and were not restored during last 27 years. We are estimating that in total, the damage which suffered these territories in Azerbaijan during this time of occupation can be estimated around 60 billion US dollars. Why? Because natural resources, besides construction and communication buildings, natural resources were looted. Forests were cut. Natural resources like gold and other mines was exploited by Armenians without any regulation and without any control. Now I want to talk a little bit about Khojaly genocide and can be questioned what is it and why I want to talk that. It's one of the bloodiest stage of this conflict, which left very deep trace on memory of Azerbaijani people. In February of 1992, town of Khojaly, small town with total population around 5,000 people, were completely destroyed and massacred by Armenian military forces. Khojaly had a very advantageous location because it had the only airport in Nagorno-Karabakh area. That's why Armenians decided to capture this city, but it was not only idea to capture the city, it was also idea to demonstrate that Armenian side will not stop on actions against civilians because city was populated by civilians. So during the night of attack against the city of Khojaly, 613 people were killed. So from totally 5,000 population of city, you can imagine that these casualties. More than 400 people were wounded. Still, until now, 150 people went missing. Among killed people, it was elderly people, child, women, families which were completely destroyed. And it's become one of the hardest parts in history of Azerbaijan, one of the pain in our heart. After the Karabakh War, after the war ceasefire was signed in 1994, our government launched the campaign Justice for Khojaly, with aim to deliver to the world information about the genocide which was performed in the end of 20th century by country Armenia, which claimed to be democratic and part of the European family. and which claim that the value, the European values like human rights, respect to the human lives, and etc. and etc. So as a result of this campaign, number of countries recognize it as a genocide. You can see the name of these countries. It's not full list. This list is larger. And now among these countries, it's also regional countries from America, Central America, Latin America. It's Mexico, Honduras, it's Panama, Peru, and other countries which recognize the Fajoli massacre. You can ask the question, what happened with international community, why nobody intervened, how negotiation process looked like. Yes, since the conflict began and independence of countries of our region was recognized, international community tried to be involved. In the initial stage, it was on the level of United Nations. But most importantly, we need to state that all three republics, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, were recognized and were accepted by international community and international organizations like United Nations and others within their borders, which they used to have during Soviet time. So United Nations accepted entry of Azerbaijan to the United Nations organization on a map which we used to have during Soviet time, which means that Nagorno-Karabakh and adjacent territories were recognized as a territory of Azerbaijan without any doubt and without any question. And all the members of international community, all the countries with whom we have diplomatic relations recognize territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan. So during the harsh part of the conflict in 1993, UN Security Council adopted 4 resolutions, which means they start to show their presence and intervene in the process of this conflict. And all 4 resolutions univocally demanded the withdrawal of occupational forces from occupied territories of Azerbaijan and demanded restoration of the territorial integrity of the country. So this is a resolution of 822, 853, 874, and 884. And again, all of these resolutions univocally demanded withdrawal of occupational forces from territory of Azerbaijan. And I want to say special thanks to the Brazil and Brazilian leadership for its participation in this process, because in 1993, 1994, Brazil was part of UN Security Council, and Brazil supported adoption of these 4 resolutions. Another major document adopted by United Nations, it was a resolution of General Assembly from 2008, which also clearly stated that all the territories which Armenians control, that time it's occupied territories of Azerbaijan. So it's very clear message to the international community how it's look like. Who were involved on daily basis on negotiation process? Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe took the leading role in this process. So-called Minsk group was created. Why Minsk? Minsk, it's the capital of Belarus, and this group was created there. Initially, 11 countries were represented in this group who start to mediate, work on mediation of process. But because presence of 11 countries was a little bit difficult to manage and it was a very slow process, it was decision that 3 countries will take a leading role and they will form co-chairmanship there, namely Russia, United States, and France. So these 3 countries become co-chairs of Minsk Group, and up to now they represent so-called Minsk Group on negotiation. Starting from 1992, when Minsk Group was created and continuing up to now, group had a different kind of activities. They came with different proposals on settlement of conflict. They tried to mediate. They organized a number of meetings on the high level, up to the presidential level, when presidents of Armenia and Azerbaijan met, talked. But with all of the efforts during all this period of 28, 29 years, they didn't succeed to achieve even single step toward liberation of occupied territories. So even 1 millimeter of Azerbaijani territory was not liberated. And which led to the lack of confidence, to the effectiveness of Minsk Group, and lack of confidence to the real willingness of international community to find peaceful solution of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. What was position of Azerbaijan during the negotiation, during the Second Karabakh War, which started in September 27? We offered Armenians who lived in Nagorno-Karabakh the highest level of autonomy, which they can't find on international practice, modern international practice, with practically all attributes of sovereign country, with their own flag, with their own currency, with their own banking system. Only thing which we require them that they will accept recognition of sovereignty and territorial integrity of Azerbaijan and their existence within this territorial integrity. So it was a very high, I would say, one of the highest level of offer or most, whatever we could find in the world and could offer to Armenians to satisfy them. But unfortunately, Armenian side, during different periods of negotiation, used to using different excuses, refused to accept it. Their position was demand of full recognition of independence of so-called Nagorno-Karabakh, which in after some period of time they start to call Artsakh Republic, and recognition as a sovereign countries. To the logical questions, why two Armenian states should exist in the world, it will not answer, because Armenians already self-determined themselves on the territory of Armenia. And to create second Armenia, based on the fact that majority of population, around 80% of the population of Karabakh are Armenians, sorry, about 60% of population of Nagorno-Karabakh are Armenians, it's groundless and useless, and it's go against international legislation, which recognize sovereignty of independent countries and right for self-determination within borders of sovereign countries. Azerbaijan constitution do not allow to have a referendum on specific part of the country. If it's referendum about self-determination or changing the borders, it should be countrywide referendum. And Armenians refuse to accept this too. They also refused to even negotiate take of 7 adjacent regions which were occupied by Armenian military forces, which obviously show that Armenia do not have any interest for peaceful settlement, and their primary interest was to keep status quo. So keep the territory under the occupation, wait for another 23rd year with hope that one day Azerbaijan will recognize their independence. And even we went to the situation or faced the situation when in 2020, the current Prime Minister of Armenia, Mr. Pashinyan, openly announced that Nagorno-Karabakh is part of Armenia, point. So it was his expression when he clearly answered to the question, are they going to talk about status Nagorno-Karabakh within internationally recognized border of Azerbaijan? No, Karabakh is Armenia. And their Minister of Foreign Affairs, that time Minister of Defense, Mr. Tanayan, he even said that they are now starting to work, Armenia are working on an idea or introduction of new idea of new territories, so conquered new territories on exchange to the states of Nagorno-Karabakh, which was very clear message to Azerbaijan that we should not expect any activities or any positive changes on a peaceful means. But with all of this, we still were part of negotiation. We were still part of the Minsk group process. But Armenia continues provocation. They start to shell the territories which they kept under occupation, civilian settlements. And this is which led to the situation which we came in September 27, 2020. So again, as in 1994, 1 million refugees, territory under the occupation, unfortunately double standards demonstrated by international community towards settlement of the conflict, security and stability. We can say that it was under the big threat because of instability there. Future is unpredictable, very difficult to attract attention of international community. Stagnation, I would say zero positive changes in negotiation. And Armenian desire to keep status quo, and importantly, position of Armenian diaspora, which supported this policy of Armenian government with maintaining status quo. So where we are today, as I said, 27th of September, Azerbaijani army launched counterattack against Armenian activities on front line when they start to shell our settlements. And within 44 days, we concluded the conflict. We finalized the conflict with liberation of all occupied territories. Small area still remain with Armenian population under the protection of Russian peacekeepers. Why Russian? Because joint statement about end of the conflict was signed through the mediation of Russia President Mr. Putin. And night from November 9 to the November 10, this statement was signed by leaders of Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia. And based on this statement, Russian peacekeepers entered to temporarily control the territories where Armenians remain, to start to lead the sides to start to work on peace building measures. Azerbaijan always claimed or always stated that it will liberate the land by peaceful or other means. So, and we were forced to use military force to liberate our lands. And we implemented all 4 resolutions of UN Security Council. But also we act based on Article 51 of UN Charter, right, for self-protection of sovereign state. And it must be clearly stated that through all the period of these 44-day wars, Azerbaijan didn't enter even to the 1 centimeter to the territory of Armenia. So everything happened on the territory of Azerbaijan, and we liberated our territories. Attempt of some forces presented as a religious war between Christian Armenia and Muslim Azerbaijan. It was attempt to mislead the world, and it was clear. It was very clear that behind that, the willingness or desire for Armenian side to annex the territory of Azerbaijan states. So we delivered this message to the international community. The Second World War, unfortunately, it also had his own cruel side. Armenians start to shell territories of Azerbaijan outside of the conflict zone, and as a result, more than 100 Azerbaijani civilians and kids, women, elders were killed during these actions, around 500 wounded. Before the conflict, during the conflict, and after the conflict, we always stated that Armenians who live in that area, they are citizens of Azerbaijan, and they have full rights, like every citizen of my country, and they can enjoy it, and they need to accept it. To prove that we don't have anything against Armenians, because our problem is Armenian leadership, we always demonstrate the fact that more than 30,000 ethnic Armenians live on the territories outside of conflict zone and live in peace and prosperity without any problems there. So, end of the conflict, what we have? Region, it's open for world international community, which can lead to the economic development, restoration of communication, which can turn to the region to the main chain of communication between Europe and Asia. More dynamic economic development. Azerbaijan economically is strongest power in the region, and we're ready to protect, to invest not only on the restoration of formerly occupied territories, but also to help Armenian economy. We're also ready to help to attract domestic, internal, and foreign investments, safer neighborhood, more coordinated regional activities, which is essential, which connected to the starting from ecology and finishing with terrorism, illegal drug trafficking, and etc. and etc. So this is just a few photos and a few evidences what's happened during the Second Karabakh War, when Armenians, you can see on the map, they start to shell the territories far behind the occupied territories, conflict zone, deliberately targeting civilians. And on the left side, you can see the city Ardahan, which now called the Hiroshima of the Caucasus. It's become ghost town. City with population around 50,000 people before the war. Now it's look like ghost town without even single remaining building there. Now let's go to the topic of our meeting and presentation and look to the economic side. GDP. When I mentioned that Azerbaijan is strongest power, economic power of the region, I tell that based on the facts. You can see on this chart that economy of Azerbaijan practically twice bigger than combined economy of Georgia and Armenia, two neighboring countries, which show the potential of Azerbaijan as an economic power and driving force of economy in the region. Let's now talk about energy and energy geopolitics. Milestone of Azerbaijan energy policy. Azerbaijan, the oldest country in the world with industrial excavation of oil and gas. It's mostly concentrated on Absheron Peninsula. And first mechanical oil well were drilled on Absheron Peninsula in Bibibat field in 1846. United States claimed that it's happened in Texas in 1874 or 73, but reality is it's happened in Azerbaijan. So we are pioneer in oil excavation whenever it's happened and wherever it's happened. Because first largest oil pipeline in the world was built from Baku to the shore of Black Sea, city of Batumi, also in Azerbaijan. And it was, for that time, one of the biggest engineering invention. First oil tanker was also constructed in Baku. 70% of oil and fuel during the Second World War in Soviet Union was produced by Baku and by capital Azerbaijan, and were provided by us. And first offshore and onshore, as I said, oil well were drilled also in area of Absheron. It's even one more interesting fact. Most of you probably know about the Nobel Prize. Every year, academicians, people of art get this Nobel Prize in different nominations, literature, engineering, etc., etc. From different parts of the world, people receive this nomination. But first one was given in Baku and paid by Baku oil money, because Nobel brothers in end of the 19th century, they arrived to Baku looking for completely different issues, a different business, but quickly realized that future is behind the oil business, and they start to invest in oil business of Azerbaijan, of Baku, and this is how Nobel Prize was set and given during that time. Coming to the Azerbaijan energy policy, what's shaped and designed our energy policy? The framework, it's because of war, as I said in the beginning, determined by foreign policy identity of my country. So our energy policy is concentrated on our own national interest. This is most important part, and this is how it was designed and how it was led. We also, as I said in the beginning, when Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Azerbaijan didn't have any experience on the international arena, and except few specialists in the world, nobody even know where is Azerbaijan. So we used our energy policy, involvement of a major international oil company, to introduce our country, to promote Azerbaijan as a country outside of our region, to become well known and to be more visible on international maps. This is one of the major driving force of our energy policy. And of course, consolidation of country's sovereignty. Again, because of conflict with Armenia, because of occupation of territory, we aimed all the revenues, all the money, all the energy, all the sources which you can use from energy policy to consolidate and restore our sovereignty. Coming to the oil, the major oil fields in Azerbaijan, it's called Azeri Güneş, Chirag Güneşli. This is 3 oil fields, some of them on deep water, some of them on shallow water. But this is our major source of our oil excavation, even though that we continue work on that. In 1994, Azerbaijan succeeded to sign so-called contract of the century with 11 major oil companies from all around the world, which represented 7 countries, to start to attract investment to the oil exploration. Yes, Azerbaijan used to have his own oil industry and experience, but it's happened within Soviet Union, and Soviet Union was not too advanced with its technologies in oil excavation. That's why for independent Azerbaijan, it was very important to be able, with all of the conflicts, with all the existence of refugees. You can imagine in 1994, the population of Azerbaijan was around 7 million. And from 7 million, 1 million was a refugee and IDP, and 20% of territory was under occupation. In this environment, to attract foreign investors to bring their money and invest in country which generally look like unstable without any future, it required huge diplomatic experience and knowledge and energy. And our national leader, Heydar Aliyev, president of the country at that time, he took this process in his hand and he led the country to this achievement. So we succeed to attract this investment. In the beginning, the proved reserve of these 3 oil fields was around 500,000 million tons of oil, which for a young country was quite good figures. And initial calculation was that oil companies will invest around 7.5 billion US dollars. And we're talking about 1994, when we calculated price of oil around $5 for 1 barrel. And $5 for 1 barrel, it was also with inclusion of the profit. And you can imagine how much it would cost now. You can explore everything, you can find the oil, you can extract the oil, but without transportation, of course, you can do nothing. And as you remember from the map, Azerbaijan is a landlocked country. We don't have access to the world ocean. Yes, we have access to the Caspian Sea, but geographically it's not a sea. Geographically it's lake, because it's only rivers which come into the Caspian Sea, and no single river go out from the sea, which make its geographical river. And it has access to the world ocean through the Volga-Don channel, and it's difficult for traffic. That's why it's become important for us to start to think about the construction of oil pipelines and use of existing oil pipelines. So only pipeline which we used to have that time, it was through the territory of Russia, Baku-Novorossiysk, and idea to start to construct our own independent pipelines immediately came to the scene. Again, if we return to the map, you can see that the shortest way to the international market or world ocean is through the territory of Armenia, Turkey, and from there to the international market. But because of occupation of territory of Azerbaijan by Armenia, we refused to use this marshroute, and it was impossible because Armenia kept the territory of Azerbaijan under occupation. They refused to negotiate liberation of land on exchange of building pipeline through the territory of Armenia to the Turkey, and the only choice which were left is to start to look to the option through the Georgia to the Turkey. And this is how idea to build Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline came to the scene. That time, most of the world powers suspiciously or without very big dogs look to this potential of to the potential of this oil pipeline because of political difficulties, because huge resistance of Armenian diaspora from outside. They insisted that we have to build it through the territory of Armenia with recognition of independence of Karabakh as an independent state. So they put all of their efforts to distract or do not allow this pipeline to be constructed. But again, as I said, political wisdom and political will of our leadership led to the situation when we start to work on that, and this pipeline was constructed finally. And this pipeline started functional in 1991. So first oil tanker from the port of Ceyhan in Turkey left to the international market, and it's opened new page on the energy map of the world and Azerbaijan. We also had a small pipeline to the Iran, but that pipeline we mostly use to deliver a small amount of oil and gas to the territory of Iran. So we cannot, it doesn't have a big commercial value. It's mostly have a geopolitical value because through these pipelines, we, on a swap base, supplying gas to the territory of Nakhchivan, the separated part of Azerbaijan. And we do not have direct access there. If you look to that map, you can see the oil pipelines which were under the consideration and exist. One of them is from capital of Azerbaijan, Baku, to the Supsa. This is a small port on Black Sea, Georgia. So it's a pipeline which still used to deliver Azerbaijani oil, but not only Azerbaijani oil, but also transit oil from Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan used this marshroute by tankers to bring their oil to Baku, and from there we use this pipeline. The major pipeline is on brown color, which go to the Port Seyhan and from there to the Mediterranean Sea. And this is a leading, let's say, pipeline in our region, and it's still very active, and we use it very actively to deliver Azerbaijani oil potential. If you look to the total number of pipelines which exist in the region, which Azerbaijan used to deliver is energy resources to the world market, we can see that in total it's around 1/10 of the equator. So it's a quite a big project which was sponsored by, not only sponsored, but paid by partly money of Azerbaijani government, but also by money of international consortium, which were created to deliver Azerbaijani energy projects, deliver Azerbaijani energy resources to the international market. In 2020, we signed another contract with, we start to negotiate and signed another contract with, in 2017, we signed another contract with international consortium about continuation of exploration of three main oil fields using even more advanced technologies, which show that besides 500 million proved oil reserve, which we discovered in these three fields, same quantity was also discovered there, which means that today we have 1 billion tons of proved oil reserve in these all three oil fields. And it's also led to the change of distribution of chart of distribution of incomes which we got from this. So if initially Azerbaijan used to get 11% of the oil from this revenue from these projects, now it's became 25, and 75% of extracted oil from these three major oil fields become property of Azerbaijan, which increase, of course, Azerbaijani revenue from the projects. Second major area which today we are exploiting is gas. Of course, even from price point, it's more effective and profitable to explore the oil fields and easy to store because oil can be stored, while when it's come to the gas projects, it has its own complications. First, it's difficult to store the gas. You have to have a specific storages for that under the ground for security reason. It's used also you need to have his own special geographical standards where you can store the gas. That's why for gas projects, it's important to have a pipeline where you can immediately deliver it. Azerbaijan always had a very big gas reserves, but we didn't have a market to sell it. So today, proved gas reserve of Azerbaijan is 2.3 trillion cubic meters, and it will enough for Azerbaijan for its export for around 50 years. Again, you can explore the gas, but you need to deliver to the international market. And this become one of the major questions for Azerbaijani side. So starting from 1996, we start to look to the development of gas projects, and we start to negotiate with closest and the largest market with European Union, how we can supply Europe with Azerbaijani gas. And in 1911, we signed with European Commission. We start to work on we signed joint statement on creation of South Gas corridor which can be used to deliver Azerbaijani gas to the European market. To understand how difficult to negotiate, because again, for that you need to transit again through the territory of Georgia, Turkey, from there to the Europe, start to distribute on the European market. You should see that process which started in 2011 finished only last year, 2020. So we finalized, and first Azerbaijani gas start to reach the European market in end of the 2020. And this project initially was calculated, estimation was around 28 billion US dollar to build, to construct, to buy the lands, to secure environment, etc. and etc. So Azerbaijan overcome all of these difficulties. We succeed to build our pipeline and start to deliver to the European market. This is just some figures about major gas fields which we have. It's Shah Deniz gas field, and it has two phases. So second phase, it's entirely designed to deliver gas to the Europe. But currently we are supplying with Azerbaijani gas Georgia, we supply Azerbaijani gas to the Turkey, and through Turkey it's going to the European market. Transportation routes for Azerbaijani gas. It's through the territory of Russian Federation, but again, it's small pipeline. It's usually we use for swap to supply different period of time. To the territory of Iran, and Iran gives same amount to the Nakhchivan, with also, of course, extraction of this transit fee there, transit process, and through the Turkey to the Italy. So major project called Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, so-called. So if you look to the map, you can see how today Azerbaijani gas reached European market. It's go to the Greece, it's go to the Italy. Today the participants of this project is the countries which show to this project. It's also Bulgaria, Albania, currently Horvatia and Montenegro show their interest too, to start to get Azerbaijani gas on their territories. One of the major achievements of Azerbaijan was creation of state oil fund. You know the Dutch disease, the phenomena when country gets a lot of revenue from the energy resources, and this energy resources and this easy money one day become a problem for the economy, because this flow comes without control, and this flow comes without good impact for development of economy. So to avoid this Dutch disease, we created State Sovereign Oil Fund in 1999. And today, to the best of my knowledge, it's the youngest state oil fund in the world, where Azerbaijani revenues get accumulated. And you might see that up to now, we succeed to accumulate there more than 42 billion US dollars. And these assets, it's not a money which we just store in the bank and keep there. Of course, it's wisely managed by state oil fund, and it's invested in different areas. One of them, for example, which can be interested for Brazil, is real estate. Every year, some percentage of this revenue can be used with oil fund to purchase the properties. And today we have properties which belong to the state oil fund on territory of Russia, Japan, Korea, Europe, many other places. And Brazil also can demonstrate its interest and to become part of the process, or come to the radar of our state oil company. The law about state oil fund is strictly regulate how this money can be used. So we cannot use this money for every project which government needs to get money for us, it's for government can go and borrow from the banks, but they cannot take it from the state oil company. But some major projects, mostly related to the energy and education, funded from there. And on this chart, you can see how this money used during this time, and it's one of the most transparent, I would say, oil fund in the world, which can be found. And it's governed by a sovereign board, which led that by Prime Minister of country. Every decision made there, and it's strictly controlled. Every year, not every year, but regularly, all fund went under the audit of international companies to show the effectiveness and transparency. And because of this transparency and accountability, State Oil Fund, or SOFAS, was several times inaugurated or awarded by different international organizations. One of them in 2007, it was United Nations Public Service Award for improving transparency, accountability, and responsiveness in public service. So in Azerbaijan, also in 2016, get another award from Sovereign Wealthy Fund Transparency and Accountability. Publications done by Peterson Institute. And in 2018, it was included in a list of 100 most significant, resilient, and impactful assets, owner of public executives. So, which means that SOFAS is today very effectively and wisely use the money of the company, and this money is aimed to protect or ensure the future of Azerbaijani people. Few facts about Azerbaijan oil funds and Azerbaijan experience. Probably not too many of you know about the Azerbaijani specialist UniCEUB Tagiev. Why I'm talking about him? In 1996, when Azerbaijan was part of Soviet Union, Brazilian government approached the Soviet Union and asked them to help to investigate potential of oil and gas potential of Brazil. Why it's happened? Because United States specialists who arrived to the Brazil that period of time, they came to the conclusion that Brazil do not have enough oil and gas potential or reserves on his territory, and it's not valuable to invest to this area. But Brazilian specialists were very suspicious about this decision of Brazilian US specialists. That's why they approached the Soviet Union. And Soviet Union decided to send one of the best specialists of his country, Azerbaijani, named UniCEUB Tagiev, who came in 1961 to Brazil to investigate potential of your country in oil and gas field. And he spent here several months and produced several maps which prove that using modern technologies, Brazil can sufficiently has a sufficient using the modern technology. Brazil can find and extract sufficient amount of oil and gas to protect its own economy, and not only for its own economy, but even export-oriented. And we are talking about 1961. That period of time, this specialist cooperated with Petrobras. He was invited by Petrobras, and during the interview of President of Petrobras, General Albino Silva, he stated that Azerbaijani specialist or Soviet specialist Tagiev and Bakirov, who came to the Brazil, they proved that Brazil has enough proven reserve of oil and gas. So this is impact which Azerbaijani specialists made in development of Brazilian oil and gas industry. And when in 1961, the Tagir, Azerbaijan specialist, gave his interview and left Brazil, Journal do Brasil, he published article about him. They posted his photo with handbag in his hand, and they put the name of this article, which can be translated on English like his portfolio conceal all oil secrets of Brazil. So this is how Azerbaijan also made its impact to the development of Brazilian oil and gas reserve. This map, it's a little bit not updated and from 2007, give you understanding of energy, not only communication routes which exist in the region. Today it's much diverse, I would say. But even from this map, you can see that the all major transportation routes was constructed to avoid territory of Armenia and go around Armenia without entering to the territory of Armenia because, again, of aggression of Armenia against Azerbaijan. And all of them start in Baku. So Baku today is focal point for transit, for delivery of not only energy resources, but also commodities to the European market and vice versa, but everything go around or go to avoid, or build to avoid territory of Armenia. Objectives of Azerbaijani energy policy is to, first of all, keep our neighbors, we can add Turkey to Russia and Iran satisfied, to become a part of European energy security architect, and we already there. To keep also some alternatives, we can start to look to the other side of Caspian Sea, to the Central Asia market, and through there to the China and other markets, to build a strong relation with our immediate neighbor, with Georgia, and to change the political landscape, landscape of the region. Why is Azerbaijan? Because we are a reliable partner. Through the whole period of our independence, we proved that we are a reliable partner, not only on political landscape, but also on the business landscape. And we're a country which keep promise. And we prove that for all for all our activities. But also, we become the important part of the European energy map, and we become one of the supplier of energy market with oil and gas, which is important for European policy. Conclusion, you can see that we are historically associated with oil and gas. More than 30 oil contracts, oil and gas contract was signed since our independence. Energy is one of the central part of our foreign policies. But not only this, during pandemic period, Azerbaijan also proved that it's, yes, this is a disease which affects everybody, including my country. But with all of this, Azerbaijan proved that Azerbaijan is responsible part of the international community. Since the beginning of the pandemic, Azerbaijan allocated $5 million to the International Health Organization. Azerbaijan is signatory of 2 contracts and delivered around $20 million to support international efforts to prevent and fight with COVID. As a chairman of non-aligned movement, Azerbaijan raised issue of distribution of vaccines in United Nations, and this issue was discussed in United Nations because unfortunately today we are witnessing of double standards when the major producers of vaccines start to supply leading countries, wealthy countries with percentage or with quantity of dosage which more than enough for their population. And this first securing these leading countries, but forgetting about the rest of the world. So Azerbaijan raised this issue, and we are also trying to help with all of our capacity and with all of our resources and energies. I think this is all. I can talk more and more about oil, gas, geopolitics of my region, but within these 1.5 hours which I had, I tried to introduce as much as possible and talk about my country. And now I'm ready for your questions and will be more than delighted to be challenged by you, dear students. Professor, your microphone is not. Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much. We are the ones delighted by your lecture, Ambassador Elkhan. It was such an interesting talk full of details of your geopolitical situation, economic and military, including situation of your country. And our students are very interested as well in these issues, and they seem to be pretty aware of the things we're talking about here. So it's a very good surprise. So I have a lot of questions here, Ambassador, from the students and from myself. And I will try to mix them because I see there are a lot of questions that are dealing with this same kind of issue of specifically the Russian influence over Azerbaijan. And I would like so I will read these questions to you now, and then I will synthesize them, try to synthesize them according to a personal interest of mine too. So, Evandro Bernardi, is Evan Bernardi, asks about the Russian influence over the basic goods for the oil industry in Azerbaijan, such as machinery, technology. Eduardo Porto asks about the relation of Azerbaijan and Armenia. I think you kind of answered this during your presentation, but he asks about the Azerbaijani and Armenian relations into this Turkish project of the Turkish Stream. But I think this links Turkey to Russia, not to this region or your region. What more? In this same kind of questions, Marx Jean from another university, UniCEUB, he asks about how our Azerbaijanis see the Russian military presence in the region, in the country. Besides I think they may have a base in Afghanistan, in Azerbaijan, still the Russians. What more? Carlos Lima also asks about how Russian interfere in the national policy of oil production, export. And okay, so all of these questions, they are basically asking about the influence Russia and Turkey has over the region. And I was really thinking about that. As a specialist in foreign affairs that you are, we are all here in the undergraduation of international relations. So in this, our common speciality, we know there is a large literature on the theme of buffer states. What in Portuguese, if our students don't recognize, we call the Estados tampão, so the buffer states. And Azerbaijan seems to be a very good example of this theoretical concept, the buffer state. So it has been along all these millennial history of your country, part of some other big civilization as the Iran, Iran or Turkey, or even Tsarist and Soviet Russia, and it also has a lot of interests being claimed by China and its Road and Belt project, and also you showed us today interest from the European Union, the interest Europe has in its energy stability. So it's Azerbaijan experiences along its history and today a lot of influence of other countries that are really playing global politics. So what does this experience tells the Afghani people on how to conduct its foreign relations? This is so our first question to you.
Thank you very much for this interest from listeners, from our auditory. Let me start with idea of buffer states. I wouldn't call it buffer states because Azerbaijan, modern Azerbaijan, has a short period of its independence. I mentioned in the beginning, so we enjoy our independence from 1918. It was just 2 years, and from 1991, it's restoration of our independence. Culturally, we played role of crossroads, which enriched our culture, enriched our cultural diversity, multi-ethnical, religious diversity. Just to demonstrate how rich is our multicultural diversity, Azerbaijan is only country outside of the Israel which has an entirely Jewish settlement called Krasnaya Sloboda, and Jewish people live there for centuries and centuries, millennia even. And this is a predominantly Muslim Shia country. And you can imagine how deep these roots of multiculturalism in my country, where we enjoy of having more than 30 different ethnic nationalities, groups who live in the country, all the major religious, and all of them enjoy their freedoms. That's why we never played the role of buffer. We probably played the role of area where great powers enjoy to see the peaceful coexistence, examples of peaceful coexistence of people of different linguistic background, ethnic background, religious background. And it was an area where everybody could accommodate themselves easily. Coming to the influence of Russia on energy projects, today we're not competing with Russia on energy market. It's different scales. So Russia is huge player on the international market from energy point, and Azerbaijani role in European on supplying of European market with gas, probably it can be get around 5% from demand, which is not a big figure. For us, it's a big figure, but for a giant like Russia, it's not a big figure. That's why we are just alternative. We are partnering with Russia on many projects. Russia has its own investment in Azerbaijani oil and gas projects. Russian company currently is a part of process on building joint projects between Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan over one of the contested oil fields on the border between Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan on the Caspian Sea. So Russian oil company is one of the potential, let's say, mediator. That's why we cannot say that we are compete with Russia or feel domination of Russia on that. We are cooperating. Talking about Russian military base, we do not have any Russian military base. This is peacekeepers, and their presence in liberated territories is temporary. According to the joint statement from 10th of November 2020, around 2,000 Russian soldiers were deployed on this area for peace building measures. Their deployment there is initially for 5 years, and after 5 years, if everything will be fine, and one of the sides, Armenia or Azerbaijan, will express willingness to withdraw the militaries, they will leave the territory. They will leave and go back. So we cannot see it as a military base. And by Azerbaijani law, it's prohibited to have a foreign military base on territory of Azerbaijan. Besides that, through the joint efforts, we established a joint monitoring center where Turkish and Russian militaries, they jointly monitor the area where peacekeepers deployed to control the situation there, which show the international involvement in this process. Turkey is a strategic ally of Azerbaijan. It's closest ally of the country. We share the common history. We share the common language. We share the religiously both countries are Muslims. That's why we have a very close cooperation. But again, foreign policy of Azerbaijan, not only foreign policy, national policy of Azerbaijan, internal and foreign, always will build and based on our own national interest. So national interest of Azerbaijan is premier goal. That's why through this, we built a very close and successful cooperation with practically all the neighbors. If we look to the Iran, for example, according to the different estimations, between 20 to the 30 million of people who live there, they're ethnically Azerbaijanis, which means that it's much more Azerbaijanis live in Iran than in Azerbaijan. Current population of Azerbaijan is 10 million. And if we talk about 30 million of Azerbaijanis living in Iran, it's quite larger, very big, let's say, piece of population of Iran. So after the Parsis, it's second largest ethnic group living there, which show that we have a common commonality with most of our neighbors. We have around between 300 to the 500,000 Azerbaijani community living in Georgia, for example, or quite a large community in north or from Russian side, south borders of Russia in Derbent, South Caucasus area. So from that point, Azerbaijan always built balanced policy, where keeping the balance with everybody without giving huge priority to anybody. But in case of Second Karabakh War, for example, after liberation of these lands, now we are in the process of rehabilitation of liberated land, which require of involvement of partners. And these partners, of course, were funding in presence of allied countries. Turkey companies are welcomed by Azerbaijan because of moral support, political support of Turkey during Second Karabakh War. Pakistan is welcome there. Italy is welcome there. Today, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Mr. Lavrov, is working visit in Baku. He is there, and he's talking about different issues of post-war rehabilitation, because Russia is one of the major player on this peace-building measures as a signatory of this joint statement. So it demonstrates that even with small, relatively small size of my country, we are succeeding of keeping balance between great powers present in the region, between Asia and Europe. We are friendly with everybody, but we do everything based on our own national interests without giving priority and without limiting our sovereignty.
All right. Very, very good to know all of this, right? Luis? All right. All right. Okay, so everybody who is watching us here can fill the form we have here close to the chat or inside the chat. You can fill the form and have your certificate of participation or presence here in this event today, all right? So let me get to another question. I will insist, keep in this issue of the buffer state, because as a international relations scholar, I think that most of what you said very effectively and interestingly are characteristics of a buffer state. So, and it's not diminishing in any way. It must, I think, a state, its politicians, they must have a lot of political art to deal with this condition of being a borderland between civilizations through history. I do think there are a lot of good consequences of that as being a cultural crossroad between civilizations. I think that your capital must be a very interesting city in that way. And I've read some analysis on the Nagorno-Karabakh war, saying that this 2020 event on September was the first great use of Turkish drones. So I see that the use of drones may have given a very clear superiority to the Azerbaijani army and a very surgical attacks, not to target civilians, for example. So in which way are you worried, as Armenia should also be worried, in terms of being used by other great powers to be experimentary places of their new arms development? So how can you be being made dependent on the arms industry of the other great powers? So in certain terms, maybe this is not the interest of neither Armenia or Azerbaijan, but because of the politics in the region, they are drowned, they are dragged into these great power interests, for example. What do you see about this? I mean, the drone thing, the experimenting drones in the war. What do you see?
Thank you very much. It's very good and interesting questions. Yes, you're completely right. It was first experience of practical use of the drones or modern way of handling the conflict, military conflict between two states, because previous use of drones in Syria and other areas, it's mostly use of one of the army against irregular military units or irregular military regiments, while here it was a full-scale war with use of all of the modern technologies, at least from Azerbaijani side, to make precise and targeted attack against military facilities. You very correctly mentioned that Azerbaijan did its best to avoid the civilian casualties from Armenian side during this war. And even according to Armenian estimations, figures, around 50 civilians were killed from Armenian side during this war on the territory of occupied by Armenians, not on the territory of Armenia. And we invested a lot through the whole period of our independence, because since first day of our independence, we faced this aggression of Armenian side. We invested a lot to build modern army with modern technology, which will handle the war on a modern way with sophisticated weaponry, without need to just shell everything, whatever you have in front of you. That's why Azerbaijan very closely cooperated not only with Turkey. We also had a very close cooperation on defense industry, from defense industry side with Israel. and Israeli modern technologies or weaponry also actively were used during this war. But most importantly, it's not that all the technology, it's also the uh, preparedness of army to handle this modern war. You need to prepare the army. You have to train your specialists to be able to use these technologies. Without specialists, these technologies is nothing, honestly. Without experience, without trained soldiers, officers, you cannot succeed. And most importantly, you also need to have a spiritual approach. You have to have a readiness of your army to go for this war and liberate your land. Uh, in Azerbaijan, the Second Karabakh War, it's become kind of expression of the country's readiness or country's desire to put the end to this 30-year-long conflict. And we demonstrated through all the mechanism in a full-bodied country how effectively we can unite it to protect the country and to reach the goal which you have in front of you. It was not only army, it was every industry or every organization and country who took part in this war to prepare themselves. Uh, you can imagine that after the first 10 days of the war, Armenian side had around 10,000 deserters or people who left without permission the battlefield. While Azerbaijan do not fix even single case when militaries would refuse to go to the battle and leave the battlefield. Today, unfortunately, our region is very militarized because of this conflict. Both sides, Armenia and Azerbaijan, put a lot of money, invest a lot of money to their army to buy military equipment. Armenia side, from this point, has some advantages because as a member of security organization with Russia, it's several former, it's Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, Armenia, for part, and also Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia, and Turkmenistan. They are part of this organization. Now, within this organization, Armenia gets weaponry or weapon supply from Russia on discounted price, while Azerbaijan has to pay hard currency, cash, or buy with international price and international market. Our president, during his speech, he stated that around 70% of our army supply and army weaponry is still Soviet or not Soviet, Russian weaponry, which show that it is not only weapon. So it's not only drones or equipment, rocket launcher from Israel, but it's also spirit of army, readiness of army, to fight a professional approach to the modern management of the conflict. Azerbaijan has its own Minister of Defense industry. We are ourselves producing different type of weapons and ammunition, and we are very closely cooperating with different countries on this matter. And this cooperation is not limited only with Turkey and Israel, but they are one of the major today major participants of this process. Again, that's why coming back to the issue of role of drones, of course, it's enormous. Drones play this own very effective role on for this quick, let's say, war. The position which Azerbaijan went through or breakthrough were built during the third year, and Azerbaijan succeeded in just 44 days to liberate and overcome all of these fortified areas and liberate their own land. That's why we always have to first put human resource as a first, and second, look at the weapons or technologies which we use during the war. I hope I
Thank you.
satisfied you.
Sure, you did. So there are lots of other good questions here from the students. I'm also going to address them, combining 2 or 3 of them here. So there's a very interesting presence and question from Sara Vieira from the Universidade Federal de Goiás, the university from our border state here, Goiás. And I don't know why I read she was from the undergraduation in geology. So that's why the interest in the theme of, I don't know why I read here, but I can see now. But she asks about the openness of your country to foreign investors in the oil industry, in the oil prospection in Azerbaijan. And our student, Luis Felipe, asks about the Azerbaijani Formula One Grand Prix, if it is associated with the oil industry, a promotion of Azerbaijan. And I would contribute with these questions asking about the consciousness and the preparation of your government over the dependency your country has on the oil industry. So are you projecting a way out of this dependency in investing in other areas? I don't know which of them, but you could tell us now.
Good questions. How country is open for investments? Our country is very open for investment. And foreign investors, besides the bilateral agreements which we have with many countries on protection of foreign investments in the country, we have a specifically law in Azerbaijan about protection of foreign investors and investment in Azerbaijan. So any country which come, or any foreign investors who come to Azerbaijan with his own money, he already protected by this law. And it's not a government regulation, it's not a government decree, it's law. And it's meaning that it's highest, enshrined in the highest legislative structure of the country. That's why Azerbaijan succeeds to attract billions and billions US dollars investment into the country. Today, you can see the presence of major investors, not only in oil industry, but in other supplementing industries. Azerbaijan enjoying every year to attract around, in total, if we take all the internal and foreign investment, around 40% of investments has come from abroad. But for last 3 years, we are turning not only from country who attract investment, we also turning to the country who himself become investors. For many years, Azerbaijan is leading investor to the neighboring Georgia. Today, Azerbaijani investments can be found in any neighboring countries, in Central Asia, in Russia, Ukraine, Moldova. We are investing in gas supply chain in Italy, in Greece. We are investing in petrol stations in some European countries. We are looking to the different markets. Turkey, which is a member of G20, is one of the points of Azerbaijani investments. One of the largest largest oil refinery which was built in Turkey, was built based on Azerbaijani investment there. So it's not only our attractiveness as investors, we're also becoming attractive as investors. That's why Azerbaijan positioning itself on the economic map as a partner which can protect not only foreign investment in the country, but also can protect or ensure guarantees by his own oil, his own reserves, and his own potential for investment. And oil farms actually playing quite big role on keeping investment status or environment of Azerbaijan quite high, even during the economic crisis. So potential of Azerbaijan to invest or investment grade of Azerbaijan by different international audit organizations is quite high because of wise balanced policy of the country's leadership. Formula One, good point. Yes, not only Formula One, Azerbaijan heavily invested revenue from oil, not only to the sport, to the culture. Azerbaijan hosted first European Olympic Games. Azerbaijan hosted six Islamic Solidarity Games. Azerbaijan became focal point for many cultural and sport events in the world. Eurovision Song Contest, it was organized in Azerbaijan because we became a winner some years ago. Formula One this year, even with pandemic, we're going to have it in June, in May, I think, May, June. I might make mistake. And this is how we are trying to diversify our oil revenue. Coming to the diversification of economy, yes, this is one of the major problems of the government. If in 90s, more than 90% of our budget was formed based on revenues which we got from oil and gas, today, we succeed to decrease it to the 60-65%, but our initial, our goal is to bring it to the 40% to avoid this high dependence from energy resources. And to get that, we heavily invested to the communication. Azerbaijan now is transit point not only for energy resources, but also for goods from China to the Europe, vice versa. We accomplished railway project for the territory of Turkey and Georgia, and now railway connection link Chinese market with European market, so huge market. It's work on both sides. We also heavily invest in agriculture. Our agriculture is very specific, it's organic. By law, it's prohibited to produce gene modified products. It can have some component, but very small one. That's why Azerbaijani product, agriculture product is very well known outside of the country. And our second export item is tomato after the oil and gas. So we show that agriculture plays its own role. Tourism, area where we heavily invested, yes, coronavirus hit this area very heavily, but we still believe that it has potential. So Azerbaijan has 9 climatic zones from 11 existing in the world, which make with relatively small territory, which make it very attractive for different type of the tourism. So tourists who look for, we are accommodating tourists who come there from religious purpose, because Azerbaijan is place where you can find the presence of every major religion in the world. Azerbaijan is place for ecological tourism. Azerbaijan place for historical tourism, and Azerbaijan is one of the safest countries in the world. So from safety point, it's very safe and attractive for tourists. That's why diversification of economy is very important for us. And from that point, we're of course looking for technologies which Brazil has, for example, in agriculture, which can be transferred to Azerbaijan and used in different areas. Brazilian specialists can come and help, for example, with harbor industry. Azerbaijan has the largest port on Caspian Sea, and your technologies and knowledge from that point also can be developed. And that's why we are always called. We're not only looking for money, we're looking for technologies and experience. That's why our market is very open and welcome every impact, positive impact which can be done.
Very, very thriving opportunities you have in your country. So it's very interesting to see how you expect good waves in the future for your population there and all the conflict, all the issues you have there. So I will end our event today, Ambassador, with a last question about the opportunities students may have there, as it is a very good, I can imagine just how culturally rich is your capital city. So what kind of opportunities do our students may have in your country?
In the end of presentation, I left the contact details of our embassy. We'll welcome your students to approach to us with that question, but using this chance. In Azerbaijan, we have a few scholarship opportunities. We have a scholarship opportunities for non-aligned movement, but Brazil is not part of this organization. So Brazilian students can approach and apply individually. And we have a few major institutions like Diplomatic Academy, for example, where students can apply for partial or full scholarship. And we have a number of students from all around the world. We can apply to our oil academy or oil school, Baku Oil School, to study there. In Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we had an organization called AIDA, it's International Development Fund. This organization has this fund for researchers, and few Brazilians already enjoy to have it. One of the professors from Brasilia, Professor Leila Bijos, for example, she spent 3 months in Azerbaijan, and she produced a book about multiculturalism in Azerbaijan. And this is the first academic publication about Azerbaijani multiculturalism, about Azerbaijan in general, in Portuguese language. So
she was our teacher here, Leila Bijos.
Yes. So
she used to be our teacher here.
And she also organized lectures about Azerbaijani multiculturalism in different universities and still organizing. So this opportunity exists. You are welcome to come. You are welcome to write us. You can find on internet our contact details, and we'll be more than glad to see more Brazilians. We have a small Brazilian community, but it's mostly football players. So we prefer to see diversification of Brazilian community in Azerbaijan. So to create Brazilian diaspora, which is composed from people from different fields.
All right. Okay. Very good, Professor or Ambassador. We are very happy to have you here today. Your lecture was very enlightening, very full of new interests, and made new opportunities as we end up now talking about student opportunities in your country. So I would like to thank you so much in the name of our Diretório Acadêmico, of our students, in the name of our coordinator, our head of department, Professor Dulce Furquim. And I would excuse myself to speak in Portuguese to our students and just say the final information here. Então, pessoal, o DAREL mandou aqui uma mensagem pedindo para avisar que está promovendo em parceria com o Far Eastern Federal University da Rússia, o curso Rússia Entendendo o Posicionamento do País no Sistema Internacional, que irá analisar a política externa russa com os grandes nomes da academia russa. Mais informações sobre o evento, siga o DAREL no Instagram ou mande e-mail para tá aí, Dira Acadêmica DAREL, podia ter um e-mail mais simples, em @gmail.com. Informa ainda que uniu forças com a ONG The Street Store, DF, na luta contra a fome em Brasília, está realizando uma campanha de arrecadação para a compra e distribuição de cestas básicas a famílias em situação de vulnerabilidade social. Você pode doar qualquer valor. É muito importante, gente. A crise da fome no Brasil é muito grave e a gente precisa estar atento a isso. Então, parabéns aí para o DAREL pela iniciativa. Para ter acesso a maiores informações sobre o curso e sobre a campanha, acesse os links que foram postados no chat do evento ou o perfil do DAREL no Instagram, que está aparecendo no canto inferior da transmissão. So, Ambassador, again, thank you very much for your presence. I would let you have the final words of our event today.
Again, thank you very much for this opportunity. I truly believe that through this kind of events, we can reach each other much easily. Even with pandemic, it's opened the new opportunities. It's bring my country into the radar of specialists in Brazil. So it's opened new opportunities beside the traditional partners which Brazil has all around the world to look more precisely and with more interest to the small country, relatively small country, mid-sized country in the new region, and maybe to see this opportunity travel. Thanks again. Thanks for everything.
Yes, thank you so much again. So with this, we finish our presentation today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.